You're listening to the Giant Shoulders Podcast, a show all about gratitude and legacy. I'm your host, Ryan Augustine. Let's get into today's episode. All right, welcome back to the Giant Shoulders Podcast. I am really excited for the guest today. This is going to be a great episode. Today we have Nick on the episode today. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you. I know, so we've been talking a couple weeks ago and a little bit before the show today, but it's been great to get to know you a little bit and have you on. Nick, so grateful, first of all, to Seth for introducing us. So we have to give him a shout out.
Yeah, I'm following in big footsteps with following Mr. Thompson around here.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't want to challenge him to a weightlifting competition anytime soon.
No, his deadlift is slightly better than mine. We do talk about it, but he's definitely got me by a little bit.
Okay, all right. Well, that's great, man. So props to him for introducing us. This has been great to get to know you a little bit. But really kind of before diving in, you are down in sunny Florida, obviously a little bit jealous as I am up in snowy Wisconsin. I was actually thinking about filming this outside in the snow fort that I made with my daughters. So I was like, it's going to be too long. I'm going to be too cold. That's not going to be good. So,
I mean, I could have taken this outside with the palm trees and really kind of rubbed it in, but we'll go with the indoor background too for everybody's sake.
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, at least it's sunny here today though, so that's a bonus. But yeah, man. So give everybody a little bit of a background, like a 10,000-foot view of who Nick is, kind of like, what you think would be some quick hitters that people would find interesting about you and kind of your, 10,000-foot view.
So I'm a native New Yorker. So that's typical for here in Florida, New Yorkers that move their way south, but I kind of took a different route. Grew up in New York through high school. I went to West Virginia University, just kind of worked out that way with school. Started as an engineering major, became a business major, realized I liked math with numbers instead of math with letters. Worked through business school, went to Deloitte and Touche, spent, years there in Pittsburgh, traveled all over the country, and then found my way to Tampa about 13 years ago. Just haven't left ever since. Once I got to the warmth and realized what January in Florida is versus January in New York or Pennsylvania or West Virginia was, I was like, I don't think I want to go back.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. And you are, your LinkedIn profile says that you're technically the managing director for Imperium Data Networks. Right?
Yeah. So managing director, co-founder. One of the things I kind of always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But one of the things in current times is like, just start a company, do whatever you like, do whatever you're passionate about. And that's very true. But for me, I was also formally educated in business. So I kind of used that as, kind of in lieu of my opportunity, waiting to kind of have that right opportunity to do the right thing, and spending time learning from others. I mean, I think one thing that people don't realize, being a 23-year-old entrepreneur sounds really cool, but there's a lot to learn. And sometimes you can learn that on someone else's back for a little while before you kind of take that burden on by yourself. So I think that's kind of, I always knew I wanted that, but it was finding the right opportunity. I started a couple small companies, sales stuff, prior to where I am now, but co-founding Imperium came up about 3 years ago, and it's been the best decision I ever made.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome. Yeah, I think the in thing is to be an entrepreneur, put that on your social media profiles and everything. And so I'm not even sure what that means anymore in a lot of ways.
I think CEO of a one-person company is a diluted title. CEO is a really cool title. I actually, today I'll even tell you, I have a problem with C-level titles. And I'll tell my team, you can call me bottle washer. I don't care what you call me. It matters what my role is. What am I doing? What am I affecting? What is my role within Imperium? And that's truly what's important at the end of the day. But titles do mean something. Titles are important. And how you kind of represent yourself. And, I struggle with C-level titles right now. I don't even have co-founder on my Imperium, or on my LinkedIn. And it's just, that's not something necessarily I want people reaching out about. I kind of leave it as managing director. That is my formal role within the organization.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. I think, a lot of people kind of overstate things, and I appreciate somebody who understates. And yeah, you're impressive other than just your title. So that's the good news. So
Appreciate it.
cool, man. Well, that's a pretty good segue. I think what you were saying about kind of learning from others and really taking in what other people have to offer in terms of their expertise and learning on other people's backs. Because that's really the big premise of this show, right? And so the two pieces are who has kind of gone before you and who have you stood on the shoulders of, and then what kind of legacy do you want to leave? So, I'm excited to hear the first part. So if you could share with us just a couple people, I'm sure there are many, but just a couple people who have gone and paved the way before you for life, business, kind of those things.
Sure. So I'll start with, one of the things that I'll share with you, one of the things that really kind of brought a lot of that together for me. I read a book called The Art of Mastery. And Robert Greene kind of talked about you kind of always have mentors in your life as you come up, and that's from day one. How do you learn how to eat? How you learn how to talk? How you learn languages? I mean, so first and foremost, obviously my mom was a single mom, worked hard. But really for me, she set high expectations. It was always high expectations, whether that was in school, in sports, in whatever that was, there was always very high expectations. And it was, I think she always just took the approach, shoot high. If you end up a little low, that's okay, but keep striving to be higher. And that's something that resonates with me even through today. So I think that's, my mom is, was definitely the foundation of that. And then when we start to talk about business, I would say in school, I had an ex-CFO of a publicly traded company as an accounting professor, Frank DeGeorge. And really, he kind of drew the lines together for me. He kind of helped me understand where I wanted to be as a professional. I started West Virginia University as an engineering student. That's not what I wanted to do in life, but that's what I thought at 18. And really, I kind of met, a great professor who kind of drew the lines together for me. I got an accounting degree. I went to the Big Four, which is great. Deloitte was a great training ground. It's an amazing company. But we were kind of talking before. I actually think back to, starting there and how that would play today, and some of the things that were going on in 2003, 2004, definitely not things that could happen in 2020 and 2021. But I really did meet some great mentors in terms of business and who those guys were and what they exposed me to. Mike Lowry and Kevin Borak, partners there, one of the biggest things they kind of taught me was time value of money. They kind of made a point where, I'll never forget Mike telling me, he goes, why wouldn't I pay someone to mow my lawn? And I asked, we were just having a conversation about money. And he was like, listen, he goes, if it's $20 to the neighborhood kid to mow my lawn, and if I get 2 hours with my kids, well, that's money very well spent. He goes, why shouldn't I buy my own time back? And so I think that's, Mike and Kevin kind of taught me kind of how to be a professional from a young kid. I was definitely, green behind the ears, so to speak. I had to learn how to be a professional, how to go to business dinners, how to sit in a boardroom, how to dress in a suit. Kind of got all those life lessons from those guys. Chuck Osherak was my mentor at Deloitte, and he was my assigned mentor at Deloitte. And I couldn't, honestly, he walked me through so many things. If I could tell you so many war stories, so to speak. But really, I thought that was a great training ground as a professional to kind of grow up, kind of learn the difference between being told you're important and you're great and things are great in school, and look at you, you're a college grad, you're worth 6 figures now, and really kind of getting into the real world and going, oh, this is how things actually work. And kind of growing from there. I left Deloitte when I came to Tampa, and really it wasn't a Deloitte thing. It was just a move in life. And I had a great manager, Indy, who the one thing that she kind of taught me, and she was a young manager at the time, kind of speaking through an old generation manager, where she kind of always used to say, perception is reality. And I hate that saying today. I still do hate it. But what her point she was trying to make is, when you're a professional, you have to realize what the perception of what your role is and the perception of who you are means as much as what you're actually getting done sometimes when you're talking about corporate culture. And that's that's a difficult thing to swallow when you feel like you're doing the right thing, but your perception is not there. And managing that was something I had to learn as a professional, because I used to work really hard. And tell this brief story. I remember working till 2 o'clock in the morning on a project, leaving the office at 2 in the morning, coming back at work, 4 hours of sleep, and I got there at 8:05, and my manager just ripped me for being late. And I couldn't wrap my head around, what do you mean I'm late? Like, I was here till 2 in the morning. But what that manager was upset about was there's other office workers and there's other people who are demanded to be there prior to or early. And if they're going to reprimand them and I walk in 5 minutes after them, that was a problem for him. And so understanding that and understanding where that comes from, or what somebody's motivation for it, hey, I got ripped into and I was 4 hours of sleep cranky, but understanding where that played in corporate culture. I don't know, when I was 28, I didn't understand it. I definitely kind of pushed limits on things like that, and kind of had to kind of test my limits and know what was good and what was bad and what was going to work. But it also kind of helped me kind of manage and set expectations today. So I think that's kind of how I've kind of grown. I've kind of had some great, mentors along the way to kind of teach you some of the ways. And really we're changing as a culture, I think, from the baby boomers who, always want to blame the millennials. And I technically am still a millennial. They want to blame the millennials, but, as we were talking even prior to starting this, like millennials are old at this point. We're getting to the primes of our careers and really kind of in that prime level. And baby boomers have nobody to blame but themselves for the way millennials work. I mean, we're their kids, and we're here. And now, I guess being a leader today, I was always the youngest person in the room up until 3 years ago when I started Imperium. I was always the youngest person in the room. Now I'm the oldest person in the room. But it's kind of really different, where I can also say today, I still look to older business leaders today, to who I talk to about business, who I look to, to guide me, to help me understand business. And I think that's one thing everybody should kind of look for, is you got to have mentors and you got to have people smarter than you around you. There's that age old, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's who you take advice from. Who do you let influence your life on what's going on in your life? I mean, if you get all your influence from, Fox News, CNN, then that's your influence. But I'm talking about in your personal daily life, when you go to how you handle situations and how you kind of build and handle relationships, marriages, however you want to set it in your career, your life or your career. You got to get that influence from someone. There's someone you're talking to, and those people really matter. And today I do enlist a few people older than me that have owned their own business. They're entrepreneurs, and I go to them for, am I doing the right thing? And sometimes they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, of course you are. And I'm like, but I didn't know that. So I think that's really important. So when you talk about people who kind of shaped you, I think that's a never-ending learning process. I really think even if you get to be 80 years old, there should be someone you're looking at and talking to and kind of building off of. I think, learning is essential for every human. I think that's what keeps us young. I think that's what keeps us kind of ambitious and kind of getting that input and getting that interaction. It's always going to be important. I mean, even in this day of video calls, we learn from each other. I had a great conversation with you. Obviously, the first time we talked for 45 minutes. I had no idea who you were. So I think that's important. And I think that's, really how, people shape your careers, reach out and connect and talk with people like-minded, with people that you want to learn from, or even people of completely opposite mindsets. Understand where they come from. I'm a firm believer. You take two humans and you sit them across from a table from each other, they're going to come out with a general understanding of each other. Whether they believe in what they believe in, yes or no, that's not necessarily true, but most humans will come out to a general understanding of each other and probably be accepting of each other if they spend the time to talk.
Yeah. Wow, man. So much good stuff. So I just want to address that last piece, because I think that's so important in a culture of, I think, social media and kind of getting fed what you like. What ends up happening is we get into these echo chambers, because the whole purpose of social media is to show us what we're interested in so that we stay engaged with the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're liking certain things, all we're going to be shown are those things that we like. And so then we get surrounded by the people that are telling us the same thing, and everybody just kind of splits in two different directions. But when you actually sit down face to face with somebody, even though they might be completely on the opposite side of whatever issue it is, you're totally right. You get to understand where you're coming from, their perspective, and you realize there are people on the other side of that, whatever that disagreement is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just happened in the immediate gratification of even the news cycle. I mean, tweets mean more than the article written for the morning, the next morning. And I think journalists have lost, they want to be so quick to get the story out, yet they write the title to make sure we click on it. And a lot of times today, I read articles where I read the title and I'm like, oh my God. And then I read the article and I go, that's not what that said. And I think when you read with an open mind and you kind of let yourself think openly about things, you find that a lot in today's world. Like social media, whatever you click on, videos you watch, things like that will definitely influence you, and will show you, what you've been clicking on, what you like, and what you continue to click on. I mean, how many times I can tell you, I hit close on my phone and it beeps again immediately, and it's YouTube telling me about a new video or Facebook telling me about an alert of, I just hit close, but it's like, no, opening me again.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I really believe that. And I was 19, or I guess I was 20, in 2001, when 9/11 happened. And back then social media wasn't a thing yet. Facebook was still EDUs. I think I might've had Facebook. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It was close. But one of the things back then, for me, I was a college student. A lot of guys were like, oh, I'm going to go join the military. I want to go fight the war, terrorism, things like that. One of the things I did, and it really did help for perspectives, I went and actually read the Quran. I was a born Catholic, baptized Catholic, but hey, I can spend a minute and read the book. The book is not that big. It's thin. You can get through it really quickly. What you find is when you read the book, none of the stuff they were saying on the news made any sense to what you were reading in the book. And I think a lot of people can even understand that today. I think in this culture of acceptance, one thing people have understood is, culture is bred and kind of pushed to be different things based on who's saying it and who has an agenda. And so that's one thing I think everybody just kind of needs to keep an open mind about with anything you do. If you keep an open mind and you spend the time to read and educate and talk to other people, you kind of come to a general understanding. Most people want and are looking for the same thing. Mm-hmm. How we get there, that's a different, conversation. But I think most people want or are looking for the same things. And some people just, need motivation or need other people around them to help support them and be that foundation. And I've been lucky in those people that have kind of helped guide me and helped given me tools to really be better today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it. And the interesting thing kind of about your story, Nick, is it seems like kind of as you were at Deloitte, you were kind of surrounded by people just almost more kind of not by accident, but by default, but being in a bigger organization, being around people that, you were in a position where you were with people who were kind of in a position to be managing you or mentoring you and kind of like growing you as a business professional. But now it seems like you've switched a little bit in terms of, you were the youngest person in the room. Now you're the oldest person in the room. But from our previous conversation, that doesn't mean that you're done learning. It means, right, number one, you're learning intentionally from younger people, which I think is so cool because you were saying that last time. Number two, you're also going and seeking out people who are outside of your immediate circle intentionally to be your mentor. And so I guess talk about kind of that shift of like because coming out of school, like we're told like you're going to change the world, like you're so important. Like we don't feel like we need anybody because we're like, we just graduated school, like we're the most important people in the world. But obviously we need real life lessons. And so talk about kind of that shift a little bit, if you would.
So I think that a little humility, I think is kind of what you mentioned it even in the beginning. I think that's one thing I've always kind of had, and I don't know where that comes from, but that humility along with that high expectation and just saying like, I don't care what my title is. I want to be important in my role and in my impact. And I think that's one thing to kind of know, but to also accept that other people that have been there before you have lessons to teach you. They're not necessarily right in everything that they do. I do agree with that. And I think things are actively changing. As I said earlier in the conversation, what I went through when I first started Deloitte, I don't think flies today for 2020 Deloitte class. But one of the things I say Deloitte does really, really well is they know they're training the future generation of business leaders. They know that. They know that day one. We were a class of 25. I think there was 7 left after I left. So in 4 years, it went from 25 to 7.
Wow.
I mean, but they know that is what is going to happen. But they also know they're going after top talent in every school in the country. And then once we spend time with Deloitte, companies are looking at us. I was walking gold to a recruiter. I remember talking to my first recruiter. I literally, I think he could have painted me gold. He knew I was walking gold. And, that's one thing when I was, I don't know, 27, 28 at the time. I didn't know that. I was like, what do you mean? And then now knowing like he made a fee off of me getting a new job, I just thought he helped me get a job. Like I thought he was a really great guy. No, he got paid for that. But I think with all that, that's the training ground where I think it really kind of teaches you like, and there was a step progression, like you're a staff to senior, you're a senior for a few years, manager, senior manager, partner. And I walked in the door day one, I'm going to be partner here. Like, look at me. And quickly learned in about, I don't know, 6 months, I'm like, yeah, no, partner's not for me. But like you said, we're all told how great we are and things like that. And that, I think that is important, and that's the whole participation trophy. Is it necessary? Is it not necessary? Like, I think it breeds a different level of humility. And that's the piece where you have to know, you have to go earn it at certain pieces, at certain points in time. I mean, I worked there 4 years. I think I billed like six years of time in 4 years. Like that was the greatest thing that ever happened. But you also have to recognize you're a valuable asset. And talking about them, I think it's just easy because everybody kind of can understand them. Like the other thing was I was billing every month what I made in a year. So I was billing our clients what I made in a year in a month. So my value was 12 times what I made. I mean, that was my value to Deloitte. And I think that's also important for people to understand. You can have a great job, and if you want to make 6 figures, I think you have to understand you got to make that company 5 or 6 times that to even expect to make it. So how do you make them 5 or 6 times what you're giving them? And I think that's an important transition that I had to learn. I mean, even as I kind of grew as a professional, you have to learn your value add is really what's important. People want to talk about, oh, how do you ask for a raise? Or how do you do this? Understand where you provide value to that organization. Yeah. And I think that really helps you, whatever conversation you need in terms of your schedule, working from home, pay, things like that. Understand where you create your organization value. And that's not necessarily always money, because it's not always money, but where do you provide value and where do you help that organization be better? And what are they getting back from your work? And I think that's an important mindset, for everyone. It's just kind of how you learn. And then once you do that, you can kind of start to go, well, how do I improve that? Everybody wants a raise. Yep. So if you want a raise, how do I up my value? And I think anybody asks their manager that, especially as a young person, if you go ask your manager, how do I up my value to the company? The manager's probably going to fall over. Yeah. And not understand what that means. In sales, it's very easy. In sales, it's like how much you sell is how much your value. It's true. Yep. But even in our organization, there's a growth period. Like there's a 6 to 9 month grind that you have to get through before you become valuable here. Seth is a prime example. We'll talk about him since he's been here. He's done great work, but he was a trained, really killer salesperson when he got here. He had to learn our industry. He had to learn our process. He had to build relationships within Imperium's umbrella of technology. And, he's becoming more and more of a rock star every day. But that takes time, no matter who you are, no matter how great you are, especially if you're in the business of people and interacting with people. I mean, screens like this create a barrier, but not really. In some ways, it's really still people are just communicating in a different way. So I think value and how you impact value and create value for people around you, the organization, however that is, that really kind of dictates what you become and what you're worth. And so I think that's the transition. And I think that humility to understand that is probably the hardest part. If you want, you got to be real with yourself. I mean, I can be honest, when I first started Deloitte, I was getting much more from them than they were getting from me probably at the time. I mean, they were able to bill for me. That was great for both people, but I was learning more from them than they were getting from me. I would say my 4 years at Deloitte was worth more than any MBA I could have ever gotten, Harvard and likewise.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think that's so important because, and again, kind of going back to your boomer comment and like how you were raised by your mom with super high expectations. I think it's really important to get out of ourselves and stop thinking about like, how do I get a raise? How do I get, the recognition I deserve? And thinking about, okay, who's in my immediate circle? How do I provide more value to them? That's an incredible mindset shift. It's super simple on one hand, but it's transformational. Absolutely transformational. I think that's so cool. And I think you're what you said about your mom at the very beginning, that hits home. From if you have really high expectations, even if you don't hit those expectations, you're still going to be better off because you strove for something that maybe it was near impossible to hit, but you at least, like, it's like, what, shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll still be among the stars, or whatever that corny kind of saying is. But
yeah, I mean, and truthfully, like, and what you find is whatever that end period is, whatever people said is their end period, like whatever that end period is, what has happened is your expectations have already gotten higher. So wherever you've gotten to, whatever you thought you were shooting for is probably pushed out. I mean, I was the first of my family to graduate college, but then my mom was like, "Oh, are you going to get your MBA?" That was her mindset of my mentality. And after 4 years ago, I'm like, "Mom, I don't know that I need an MBA. I think I got it."
Yeah.
But my career kind of grew, and I was a trained accountant, and now I was then a full blown salesperson, and that's probably what I'm passionate about today. I mean, so we've been talking about Deloitte and accounting, but today I also can tell you, like, that laid the foundation for me to be a salesperson.
Sure.
Sell or be sold is kind of a mentality for a lot of people, but I mean, my 1.5-year-old nephew sells me on what he wants to do and points and, hey, like, I want to do this. And like, I just do it because I know that that's what he wants. He's selling me. And it's a human attribute that we learn from before we're conscious of it. Yeah. And, in improving upon that and building upon that, I think is important. And, having that confidence, I think too long people haven't dealt with adversity through those high expectations when they're young. Yep. So when they get to be, kind of a young professional, they run into that adversity, and that adversity can be, crushing. I kind of mentioned it, I kind of cringed at it earlier. Like, I definitely ran into some situations like in my young professional career that I'm like, if I didn't have great mentors, I don't know, I might have folded. I really had some people kind of talk me off the ledge, so to speak, and kind of bring me back in and show me how to handle certain situations. And I think that's really important for everyone to kind of just learn and understand and kind of get better at, because that humility and then that learning and it can be what drives and what really builds, be the foundation to build off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I love that. That's good. All right, cool. So let's transition now to legacy. So Nick, if I'm talking with somebody 10 or 15 years down the road on this exact podcast, and they had the pleasure of being with you at some point in their career, what do you want somebody like that to say about you? What do you want, like, family members to say about you? Like, what do you want your legacy to be long term?
So I think right now, I think in terms of just business, I want to build a modern company that can build and breed a sales organization that accepts Gen Z and on, because I don't know what the next generation is going to be called. I don't think we've decided that yet in this world, but a modern organization that can learn to build millennial, Gen Z, and on to help people just build a great life. I mean, I had somebody come to me and say, "Oh, you co-founded the company. You're just going to be a millionaire and go fly around in private jets." I was like, I only wish that was that easy. It's not. And, even for myself and for Brian, we're here every day. I mean, my job is to lead from the front. My job is to put in the work and to show them the way that I learned, but in a different way. I think, what worked with me and what was impactful for me is different today for, young millennials and Gen Z, which, just entered the workforce. I think, building upon that and teaching them how to be a better professional, I think will be my legacy through Imperium. I don't need to be Jeff Bezos. I just need to have a great team around me where I enjoy going to work every day. I tell my wife every day I'll never retire. I don't think it's not an option for me. Everybody's like, oh, I want to retire by 40. Well, I'm about to be 40 and I can't tell you what I would do. Even if you gave me 100 million, I'm not really sure retirement's in my future.
Yeah.
And that's my mentality as a hungry sales professional, is really who I am at my core. I'm never going to be ready to retire. One of my business mentors is 90 years old and he is still sharp as a tack, but he's engaging. He wants to know what my business is doing. He wants to know what my struggles are. He wants to know those things. He just wants to hear me talk. And I'm looking at him and he's giving me great ideas to take back and kind of implement in my life. And that's, I think, especially in sales, that's the mentality that you have to grow to be passionate about. I mean, if you're already mailing in the check for your retirement, I think you're missing something. I think you're missing a passion in what you do. And it doesn't mean like, oh, I went to school to be a nurse. Well, if you went to school to be a nurse, but found you really love sales, well, maybe medical device sales is your thing.
Yeah.
Like you can find your way to where you will truly be passionate. And I think that's the impact I want to make on my organization, the people who work with me, whether they stay with me, stay with Imperium or don't, or they just, build their first few years of their career here. I want to give them a foundation to be the best version of themselves. And at the end of the day, I help them get there one step of the way. I don't set, in terms of high expectations, I just want to be a positive impact on those people, and build that positive legacy. I mean, will Imperium live on? I hope so. And I hope I'm able to hand it off to whoever at some point in time. Right now I don't have a personal family legacy to hand it off to, but it doesn't matter who that is. It's build that culture that builds upon itself. We were talking about Deloitte, but one of the things about Deloitte is they're a set culture where they know what they're doing across the world. And that's, I think, important in any organization, and to be modern and to build with Gen Z, young millennials and Gen Z, to continue to build a modern organization that's successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's great. I think, to your point, it's so interesting. So as a financial advisor and planner, I meet with people all the time who are like, yeah, man, retirement as soon as possible. And my advice to them is just like, well, maybe let's not think about it like retirement. Let's think about it like you can choose to do something that you actually want to do, or maybe we should actually look at switching jobs right now, because if you really want to leave that bad, should you be spending 40 hours a week doing that, or 60 hours a week, or 80 hours a week?
Yep.
And so I think that's really cool, because I think the definition of retirement has changed quite a bit. And I think you're a unique, you've got a unique way of thinking about things, which I really appreciate, because you realize what got you to where you are, but you realize that the people behind you need something different, and that the future, it's cool hearing you talk. So I appreciate that insight, man. That's unique.
I'll give you a quick tidbit. My great grandmother, made a comment at Christmas dinner, and she made it to my mom, and I was listening. But what she said to her was, "Don't retire." So my mom just turned 66.
Yeah.
Or 67, actually. I better correct that, or she's going to kill me. But she just turned 67, and she said, "Don't retire." And the thing she was saying is, you're gonna lose that edge.
Yeah.
And she worked a long time, and she's been retired for 30 years now, probably. And she's in her 90s, she's still alive, but she misses that. She misses that engagement. And I think that's one thing. Like you said, retirement, people have gotten this fantasy idea of what retirement is. And the truth of the matter is, I mean, even now, I've seen some very successful people I knew that retired well off, could do whatever they wanted, and could just sit home and enjoy life, or what you think is enjoy life, and they don't find happiness there. And for me, I think that's where coming to work and being around people I enjoy working with, hey, are there trials and tribulations? Yes, of course. But life has trials and tribulations. No matter who you are, no matter what you're dealing with, things are hard at times, and you have to deal with the hard, but that makes you appreciate the good. And like you said, I think that changes from now, and that changes for the people that come up underneath us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the big takeaway for me, and I think for a lot of people who listen to this, should be that we need to find purpose in what we're doing. I think that's really, like, whatever we're doing, whether it's personal, whether we get paid for it or not, whether it's at our job, whether it's in our personal life, we need to find something that drives us, that gives us purpose, and that moves us forward, and that we're shooting for excellence in, kind of tying it all together, right? And I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Like, for you, it's Imperium, but it might not always be Imperium. It could be something different later. And so I think that's super important, because if we're just looking for the finish line, and the finish line is 65 when you can collect Medicare, and Social Security is something that you have the option to pull the trigger on. Like, if that's what you're waiting for to truly live life, it's like, I can help you get there, but we should probably talk about what's important to you and where your fulfillment lies, because that's not. I've seen too many people look at me after 6 to 8 months of retirement saying, "Man, I've played a lot of golf, but haven't gotten that much better, and I don't enjoy it that much, and might look at starting my second career." And it's so true, man. Purpose is so important.
Well, we always idolize the wealthy here in the United States, right? Like, we look at Bezos, we look at Gates, we look at Buffett. And if you really start to stop and think about what they're doing now, I mean, Buffett's still working. I mean, Buffett's still actively engaged in Berkshire every day. Gates is doing philanthropy. Like, he's doing what he's now passionate about. He's not on Microsoft's board anymore. He's just doing what he's passionate about. His wife is the same thing. Bezos is still running Amazon. I mean, that's his job. Yes, he might only pay himself $82,000 a year, but I think his stock options are working out for him. So I think if you really do idolize them, I think you got to look past the newspaper and kind of look at what are people actually engaging themselves in. And I think when you really look at that, Gates is really passionate about vaccines and water and helping third world countries with water and different things. Like, when you really stop and think, that's what he's passionate about. Like, I don't want to say he lost his passion, but he knew it wasn't time for him to be leading Microsoft anymore. And they seem to be in pretty good hands right now. So I think those maturation processes of every professional happen, and every job happens. I mean, it can happen. You can grow out of things, and it can be okay to move on. And I think that needs to be okay for the organization as much as it is for the employee. Right. I mean, nobody wants to lose a great employee ever. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that, but there can be a natural process of growing up and growing out and growing on to new things. So even young salespeople, for me, like, if you come to my organization, I want to teach you the best salesperson you can be. If you choose technology as your thing and you stay here forever, awesome. If you decide you want to go to med device and you get an opportunity to do so, God bless you. I wish for the best for you. Let me know if I can ever help. And that's kind of, the mentality I think a lot of people have to have in business. I've been involved in some lawsuits, and a lot of times they don't make sense. And they're just people, sour feelings. And I think people really spending some time and thinking about what's best for them is important. And I think taking that time and being real with yourself, and again, going back to being humble and setting your own expectations. Like, I think that's the important piece. Like you said, if you're spending 40 hours a week doing something you don't really like, I'm not saying, like, hey, you have to leave tomorrow, but you have to be real with yourself on what should or could you be doing. And where does that lead you to? Right. And sometimes that means taking a step back. I mean, I took a step back when I went from, high-end finance accounting to sales. I mean, I took a step back in salary, but then I learned what commission was. So it's a give and a take, but I had to be willing to take that and kind of understand I'm going to make significantly less, but I can learn. And then I built upon a commission plan and became successful that way.
Cool, man. Oh man, that's so cool. I've loved just about every minute of this episode, and it's been a little bit longer than we had originally hoped, but that's what happens when you get going, man. Yep. Cool. So how can people connect with you? Your company, you kind of personally, like what's the best way for people to get in touch?
So Imperium Data on LinkedIn, obviously best place to connect with the company. And Imperium Data kind of covers all three business lines of Imperium. Nick Scarsella on LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I really don't kind of interact so much on other social media platforms. And a lot of that is just my focus is Imperium. So I find LinkedIn is my main social media to give me what I want out of social media. And so those are the best places to connect with me. I pretty much connect with everybody. I'm always willing to have a conversation. I can be a tough guy to get sometimes, as you know, but I can be a tough guy to get during certain times, but I always want to have a conversation. I always want to learn, and currently now we're hiring business development executives. That's just out of college. And really, one of the other things I'll cover with you, Ryan, I think is important for everyone today. College degrees aren't everything anymore. I think people's willingness to want to learn and grow can come in many different forms. And I think that's one thing we didn't cover here today. Maybe we can just add this in. Like that piece, really is college really shows you can start and complete something. I think that at the end of the day is unless you want to be a doctor or, a lawyer, you kind of have to fulfill, hit certain buckets.
Yeah.
But in sales or in development or in software development, things like that, there's other places to learn your trade and learn your skills. And if you're willing to do the work, you can get there and you can build upon that from, 18, 19 years old, straight out of high school on up. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And, even if somebody wants to start a second career and they really like, Microsoft Azure, you can go for a couple $100, take the certification and become a certified Azure specialist and get a high paying job doing so. So I would say even in that, that's where there's so many options today. That's what social and media and speed to market and everything is really given us that I think people forget is there. We can talk about, maybe some of the negative impacts of that social, but the positive stuff is there. Yes, we talk about the negative, but that positive is there too. And reaching out to your network within LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you choose to, be in your social media home, wherever that is, you can reach out and find people of like minds and like people that help you get to that next level.
Yep.
And help you start. You can be whatever you are over here. And, career, my second career can sometimes just be a little extra time on the laptop, getting certified or getting up to date on something and really kind of bringing yourself to the next level. But for us at Imperium, we're hiring, new, younger sales reps, Gen Z sales reps as they can sometimes be called. Young millennials, Gen Z sales reps. We want to bring on great sales reps. Got to build an amazing team. We have a slot for 5 this year. So we're going to be hiring 5 new sales reps this year. And really for us, 2020 was a great year, unlike for many in 2020. So 2021, we're looking to build upon that success and continue to really help our clients become more valuable as we move along, as we're a value-added reseller. So value is what we create, and that's what's really, truly important. So we're getting better every day. They're getting better every day, and we're looking to add to our team. So Imperium on LinkedIn, Imperium Data at LinkedIn, it's Imperium Data on Instagram, Imperium Data at Facebook, all the marketing is there. And we got some new content coming this year as well.
Cool, man. Are you guys location specific or hiring all across the United States, or what's the
hiring all across the United States? Young reps are tough. Young reps are tough to be outside of kind of home base, where we really just feel like we can have the best impact if I can sit next to you and I can hear you on the phone and I can work with you through some things. Mm-hmm. But experienced sales reps, nonetheless, we're always looking to add, talent to our team that can help build upon that team. We kind of joked in the beginning, Mr. Thompson might start his own office one day. He's only been here 6 months, but it's not off the table for him either. And that's the biggest thing, where when I said I want to build upon Imperium's going to build upon itself. And with guys like, with Seth here, it's going to do that. And it's going to do that organically, whether I like it or not. And I just want to be here to support it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and like we talked about, you'll just have to change the colors to black and yellow out in Iowa, but that's fair enough.
Yeah, we'll give him a black and yellow Imperium logo, and I think he'll be just fine.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, Nick, this was so good. I so appreciate your time coming on. This was valuable for me to be here and listen to you and hear your insights. So thank you for being here. It was
Absolutely.
a blessing for me and for our listeners as well. So
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
awesome. Take care, man.
Later.